Welcome back to New World Tank Mastery, where I, Ty James, your mother's favorite online tank, and I know that because she told me that this morning at breakfast. Anyways, what I'm going to do today is I'm going to go over my tank build because a lot of you guys have been asking for a tank build video or been asking, hey, why do you run this? Or, what do you use for this? So this way I can kind of show you what I'm running and maybe give you some tips and tricks if, say, you're a brand new, fresh level 65 and you're wondering how do I get gear so I can start tanking mutated dungeons and endgame content and stuff like that. I'm hoping I can cover everything in a nice, concise video, right? I don't want this thing to drag on too long. So if I skip over something, I apologize, but I'm going to do my best to not do that. All right, so let's get into it. Let me start with what I am currently running and kind of the reasons why I'm running it. So I am currently running the Hoplite gear. So I have a Hoplite helm, I have Void Dark Plate, I have Hoplite gauntlets, Hoplite greaves. I don't have the Hoplite sabatons because I have not been that lucky, and I just haven't used my Gorgon stuff or tokens to purchase it. But I will soon just have the Hoplite boots as well. Hoplite Tower Shield, Hoplite Longsword. It's almost like a bit of a theme here. Power Stone, Stalwart Heart Rune of Stone Form, Hoplite Amulet, Blood Drinker, and Hoplite Earring. Okay, so a couple things. When it comes to my shield and my amulet, these two things are going to be changing out depending on the content. So, for example, let's just use Hive of Gorgons, for example. When I come up to all the trash mobs leading up to the first boss, I'm generally going to run just a basic Hoplite Tower Shield with shield defense, enchanted ward, sturdy energy, sturdy, whatever, right? When I get to Echidna, the first boss, he does strike damage. He primarily does strike damage. So what I'm going to do is I filter out my strike shield ward on my shield here, and I swap. And same thing for my amulet. This amulet has a 15% strike protection. So I swap those two things. Generally, I'm running like onyxes in that leading up in the first boss and the second boss. And then I swap to nature gems for Medusa because she does nature damage, right? So for Echidna and Typhon, I'm generally running onyxes all the way down. This will also change depending on the content. Say I'm doing Winter Forge, which does ice damage. Or say, for example, this week, our mutated expeditions are icebound, right? Which means it does frost damage. So what I would instead do is I'd swap out the gems for right here, these cut pristine aquamarines, so that I get frost protection instead of nature or whatever. And then same thing, I would switch to a frost shield. Let me see if I have one on me here to show you. Nature, here we go. So I would put frozen shield ward on my shield perk, so I get 15% less damage from ice damage, plus whatever I'm getting from my gems here and my amulet, so that I'm getting a whole lot of damage resistance, which is really good and beneficial if you are a tank. Kind of your job, absorb damage. Okay, so those amulets and shields, what I would recommend is as you get stuff, right, as you're looting things out in the world or you're getting things from dungeons, let me show you all my different shields here. Right, I have a ton of different shields that I have at my disposal depending on the type of content I'm doing. So if I come across a shield that say has a let's see if we can find one here. Accelerated resolve, that one's really good. Yep. Right there, thrust shield ward. So this one, 15% less thrust damage. I'm going to hold on to that because if there is some sort of content in which the boss or the mobs or whatever it is that I'm up against primarily does thrust damage, then I want this shield so I get that extra 15% damage reduction. Same thing, let's look at this one. Let's see, another thrust shield, right? So I have options. So say I wanted to sort them, I would Type in thrust here. Or thirst. I guess it would help if I spelled it correctly. All right, so I have all these different options. So I can look at all the other perks. So I have thrust, shield, ward. This one has luck. Not really that great. Sturdy, energy, shield, defense. This one, bing, bing, bing. Enchanted ward, thrust, shield, ward, shield, defense, and refreshing. Now this right here would probably be one of the better shields to use in some sort of content that I need thrust reduction, right? So let's look at some of the other ones. You know, like if we have a void, like this one's strike. So this one I take 14% less strike. But I actually have a strike one over here that gives me 15%, and it has enchanted ward, shield defense, and sturdy. So this is the one I run when I'm up against Echidna, right? And then I would put my strike, or where's my strike? Amulet. Before I have to type in strike. That's frozen. Frozen. Like Anna, whatever. Maybe I put it on. Do I not have it on me? Yeah, let's see. Let's go strike. Oh, I already equipped it to show you guys. Yeah, that's why I couldn't find it. Anyways, so I would swap out whichever amulet I need for the right protection perk. Okay? So the other cool thing about amulets is, let's look at this my hoplite amulet that I normally have equipped here. So let me put my regular gear back on. So this hoplite amulet, if I'm not using that specific protection perk, I want another little perk here called Fortified. So any Fortify that is applied, that I apply, lasts 35% longer. So say it's a 10-second Fortify, it's going to last for 13.5 seconds. Okay, so a nice little perk to have. Doesn't mean it's best in slot, but I like using it because I do a lot of fortification with my build. Okay, so that's currently what I'm running as far as gear goes. And let me tell you kind of why I'm running that. Void Dark Plate. This right here is kind of like the pinnacle of how I set my character up for a heavy load. Because the main thing is Dark Reinforced. My armor is increased by 20%. So whatever my armor value is down here, physical or elemental, it's going to increase it by 20%. So as a heavy user, you're building up your defenses. You're gaining an extra 20% of those defenses. So it's very, very good. It also has Enchanted Ward. So you're going to see pretty much all my gear, I want some sort of Enchanted Ward on. And I'm going to tell you why. So what Enchanted Ward does is, when it's a max level piece with it, it's a 4% reduction from light and heavy attacks, okay, per piece of gear that has it. So if I have 5 pieces of gear, that's 20%. If I have 6 pieces of gear, that's 24% reduction from light and heavy attacks. Now, why is that important? Because the way the game is coded, right, how they wrote the code in the game, almost every attack in the game is coded as either light or heavy, including bosses, regular mobs, PvP, and everything is coded in light/heavy attack. So by having Enchanted Ward, you're giving yourself a automatic reduction of that damage. Okay, so that's why Enchanted Ward is super important. Let's see what else comes with Void Dark Plate. Is physical aversion. So range physical attacks, so like bows, muskets, things like that. You get 4.5% less damage. Yeah, good, but not like amazing or anything. But what I attach to my Void Dark Plate is Vital Synergy. The reason why I went with that perk, so when my health is below 50%, I gain a 15% stam regen. So if my health is low and I'm below 50, then I'm getting a 15% stam regen rate increase. If my stamina is below 50%, so say I'm blocking with my shield or something like that, and I'm dodging, and my stamina drops below 50, then all incoming healing is increased by 15%. Right now, in this current season, in this current patch, it is OP. The way it's running right now, Vital Synergy is OP on, and kind of best in slot perk really to have on your chest piece. Okay, so now let's look at my helm. If you look, my third perk is Crippling Feral Rush. I don't really run hatchet. So honestly, it's kind of a wasted perk. What I should do, and which I will do when I'm not a broke boy, if you have extra gold, send it, please. Anyways, if I wasn't a broke boy, I would come over to the gypsum kiln and I would swap that third perk to, say, refreshing or maybe like slash conditioning or something other than crippling feral rush, because I don't really run hatchet much. So the base stats though, or the base perks that come on the hoplite helm, is enchanted ward and health. Same thing with the gauntlets, enchanted ward and health, and then whatever third perk. So on my gauntlets, my third perk is strike conditioning. That's decent about against echidna, or against hammer users in PvP or something. But unless I'm specifically up against a strike damage mob, then it's kind of a wasted third perk. So another thing I would put here would probably be refreshing. So I'd have enchanted ward, health, refreshing. Enchanted ward, health, refreshing. I'm getting, up to those 4 stacks of refreshing, which is going to give me cooldown reduction. Okay. So the only non-hoplite, main piece that I have, other than obviously my Void Dark Plate, is my boots. So I have not been lucky enough to get my hoplite boots. Every run I do of Gorgon, I always get gauntlets, or I get amulets and swords and shields and all kinds of good stuff. My trousers, my helmet, but I have still yet to get my boots. But I did get a nice little pair of heavy Gorgon Sabatons. It has contagious upheaval, so I use upheaval on my sword and shield, so it's not really wasted. It does come with refreshing, so I get the refreshing. But the third perk is lightning harnessing. I don't do any lightning damage, so it's kind of a wasted perk. So ideally, I'd want either the worm boots, which give me keen speed, right? Ideally, that'd be like my best in slot, getting a keen speed boot. Or next would be the hoplite, just having enchanted ward, health, and refreshing on the boots. Overall, great for tanking. Okay. So that's kind of what I'm running in my gear. So let me transition into kind of what you should be working towards, and I'll tell you why. As of the recording of this video, I think today is the 1st of October, which means in 12 days, Season 10 comes out. So a lot of what could be best in a slot right now is probably going to end up being pretty much freaking irrelevant, right? Because we're getting a new level cap increase. We're going from 65 to 70. And we're also getting a gear score cap increase from 725 to 800. Meaning a lot of this gear that you're working towards could potentially be completely out the door come 12 days from now. But one thing that they're doing is a complete overhaul of the endgame gear progression, how perks are done, how things are crafted, how things are upgraded. And one thing that was in the notes was any piece of gear that is 700 and above can be upgraded to 800. So I don't think that all these are going to be completely irrelevant, because the moment I hit level 70, I could technically upgrade every one of these pieces of gear to 800 and still have maybe potentially best in slot gear, even though it was 725. It's probably going to be expensive. It's probably going to take forever to upgrade. Maybe it's time gated. Who knows? Who knows how the process is going to be? But don't think that it's not worth working towards when there will be an opportunity for you to upgrade anything that's 700 and above to 800. Okay? So just keep that in mind when we're looking at this build. Now, say you're a fresh level, say 65, right? And you're like, well, that's great. That's all great gear. I need to know what gear I can use to where I can start getting into that end game content, mutated dungeons, Hive of Gorgons, Winter Forge, or any of these, like, Worm, things like that. How do I get to this end game content and where I'm tanky enough to tank it? Okay. So you can farm name bosses, you can do all kinds of stuff. But if you're also a broke boy, right? You don't have a lot of money in the bank, but you did level up your faction, an easy starter. Now, this is completely starter kit. If you have better gear than this, then obviously you use that gear. But as a complete starter, if you go to the vendor for your faction and you go and you're the highest ranked faction you can be, right? If you look right here, so this is a heavy headwear piece. It's gear score 675. So it's obviously not close to endgame. But if you look at the perks, the 3 perks that this comes with: Enchanted Ward, Refreshing, Health. Sounds a whole lot like my Hoplite gear. Enchanted Ward, Refreshing, Health. You're just not going to have as many stat points allocated, right? But if you look at the cost of this, it costs 14,725 faction tokens and only 640 gold. Not bad, right? Now, like I said, this is all starter gear. Now let's look at the chest piece. Enchanted Ward, Refreshing, Health. Let's look at the gauntlets. Enchanted Ward, Refreshing, Health. I wonder what the legs would be. Enchanted Ward, Refreshing, Health. Boots. Enchanted Ward, Refreshing, Health. Whoa, it's almost like it's a bit of a, set thing that you know you're going to have. All of which are great perks to have when you're first starting your tanking journey and needing something to help keep you alive when you're inside endgame content. Okay, so this is a great starter option you can go with. And it comes base with Constitution. If you wanted to change that perk or that stat from Constitution to something else, you would get the item. You come up here to the initial part of your faction and you'll see these seals, right? This one would swap that item to Strength. You would go to, I think it's the Artificer or the Outfitter. You go to the Outfitter and you can change the stats from Constitution to Strength, or Constitution to Dexterity, or Constitution to Focus, whatever it is that you want to switch it to. And you can kind of make your build around this starter gear. Okay, so that's if you're like a fresh level, 65, and you don't really have anything better as far as gear and perks go. That's one option you can do. Okay, now once you have that and you're able to start, say, tanking endgame dungeons or even M1 mutated level 1 dungeons, the gear you're going to want to work towards is what I call the intermediate tank gear. Okay, so let me swap that on. The intermediate tank gear is your Frigid Dawn. You get this from Glacial Tarn when it's mutated, and you really only need to do the M1 version of it for a chance to get this gear. If you do M2 or M3, you have a higher chance of getting a higher gear score version of the Frigid Dawn, but the chances of Frigid Dawn actually dropping are pretty much the same whether you're doing M1, M2, or M3. So if you can run, say, 10 M1s in the same amount of time that you can run, say, 3 M2 or M3s as far as the mutation level because of the difficulty, you have a pretty high chance that you're going to get this gear doing the M1s because you can get through those faster. Okay? Now, the reason why this is intermediate and where this is going to carry you into endgame content is, let's take a look at the perks. Enchanted Ward and Elemental Aversion are the base perks. So we'll look at this purple one. So the Elemental Aversion and Enchanted Ward are your base perks. They're from the same perk pool during crafting or anything else. So it's not a combination you can typically get from your gear. So you'll hear it online from different videos. They call it an illegal perk combo or combination. It's not that. It's just you don't there's no other gear in the game that has those two things together. So those two things together give you a 3 or a 4% at max level or 700, but a reduction of damage from light and heavy attacks, and also a reduction of damage from ranged elemental attacks like, a fire staff or some sort of elemental damage that's ranged. So you're getting your light and heavy attack reduction and you're getting ranged elemental reduction all in one piece of gear. So can you craft this the way you want it? Yes. So you get your Frigid Dawn gear. You're going to come to Gypsum Kiln, just like you would do with the Hoplite gear, right? And let's type in Frigid. So let's take a look at these gloves, right? So I have a pair of these gloves, Elemental Aversion and Enchanted Ward. I can choose a third perk of whatever I want. Okay, I can put in health. So I can have Enchanted Ward, Elemental Aversion, and health. I can put in, let's see, refreshing. I can put in a refreshing perk to where I have Enchanted Ward, Elemental Aversion, and refreshing. I can build this item with whatever third perk I want that's going to suit my build. So, say for example, this helmet, I upgraded it. It was like a 6.4 or 654 or something when I first got it. So I used the Gypsum system and I upgraded this to 700 and I put slash conditioning on it because there was a lot of slashy boys out there. And against Typhon, who does slash damage, this was a good option for me, right? So same thing with the chest piece, Elemental Aversion, Enchanted Ward, and I put Vital Synergy. I put that OP perk on this chest piece. So my gloves, Elemental Aversion, Enchanted Ward, slash conditioning. So right there between my helmet and my gloves, I already had a 10% damage absorption of slash on those two pieces of items. So this was a really good for slash. So as you can see, these right here have those awesome perks built in, and then you can choose, you can upgrade it and change that third perk. Now, the reason why this is intermediate is this gear is strong enough to allow you to run M2 and even some M3 content without issues. Like you'll be able to do this, okay? The other thing this will allow you to do is run Hive of Gorgons. So all the Hive of Gorgons gear that I have, and every run I did when I first started, I actually did this raid with my Frigid Dawn gear, right? I used Frigid Dawn to tank this dungeon or this raid. And from that, I started getting all the hoplite gear, right? So as say like the helmet dropped, right? I would swap out my Frigid Dawn piece for the hoplite. And then when my gloves dropped, I swapped out the Frigid Dawn for the hoplite. So I was piece by piece, as I was doing that content and I was getting better drops, I was able to start replacing the Frigid Dawn gear with the higher, better perked gear of hoplite. Okay. So that's kind of how you start progressing up into this end game version, is you start slowly replacing the pieces as you're able to start tanking more and more and more content. So you start off with like, you know, your basic gear that's strong enough to get you to do the intermediate content. Then you get the intermediate gear from that intermediate content, and you turn around and use that to then get into the end game content. Doing the end game content with the intermediate gear starts dropping the end game gear, and then you start replacing your intermediate gear with end game gear, and it's just like a nice, you know, loop. Okay. So where do you get this Void Dark Plate? You get this from Barnacles and Black Powder Expedition when it's mutated. Same thing. It'll drop in an M1. It doesn't have to be M2 or M3. You can get it. And if you have this set up right here, and say somebody's doing a gear check and they're like, hey, link me your gear. I need you to tank Hive of Gorgons. And you send them, you got all the hoplite stuff. You got, you know, Void Dark Plate. You got your hoplite sword. You got all this good stuff. They're going to be like, oh, this person's obviously done this quite a bit. They probably know what they're doing. You're likely going to get in the group. Okay. So that's the type of gear that you're working towards, is getting the max perks. So from here, what I'm working towards is trying to get this bank of money that I don't have, because I've been doing the upgrading. And let's be honest, man, armor matrix, weapon matrix, jewelry, all that crap is expensive. And I'm a broke boy. I'm just out here fighting peeps, dude. And yeah, I got no money. I'm broke. No gold. All good though. Anyways, so what my progression, which I'm waiting to upgrade these things. The reason why I'm waiting is I'm waiting for 12 days from now when season 10 goes. I can see what the upgrade system is going to be like. So instead of me trying to change these perks to best in slot perks right now, I'd rather save the crappy amount of gold I have until the 800 gear score, and so I can see what it is I'm going to need to actually do the upgrades. Otherwise, I would have had these with all the exact perks I want, right? So now let's talk about the weapons I'm currently running, okay? I found in this season, and this is specific for this season, Season 9 and this specific patch, the Flail is still OP. It is still very, very OP, okay? Now, let me explain why I run Sword and Shield and Flail together as a combo. So, Sword and Shield is your standard, tanky boy, whatever, right? So we got our Sword and Shield on. I like Sword and Shield, and I like running leadership so that I'm empowering my team by 10%. The other cool thing about Sword and Shield is because of this 10% empowerment and this little perk right here of the stat or on the skill tree, heavy attacks grant me 30% empower. I do one heavy attack, I'm at 40% empowerment. The cap is 50. So one little heavy attack, I'm 40% empowered. So I'm already at almost max empowerment, just one heavy attack. Okay? Which is amazing. Sword and Shield is probably one of the easiest skill tree of weapons to reach max empowerment. Okay? So that's one reason why I like Sword Shield. 2, my final attack in my 3 attack chain, right there. That third one inflicts a rend. Okay? And what the rend does is it reduces the armor of the target I'm fighting. So for 2 seconds, I get a 15% armor reduction. Okay? And then right here, this stacks up to 5 times. So when I block an attack, I also gain empowerment. So check this out. So I block 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 attacks. I'm at 15% empower, plus the 10% from leadership. So I'm technically at 25% empower. I heavy attack, I'm maxed. So while I'm up against a boss and I'm blocking heavy attack, I'm at full 50% empowerment, just like that. Right? Very, very simple to stay empowered with Sword and Shield. And then obviously you have like your taunt, your defender's resolve. You have a lot of good incoming healing and regeneration increases. Increase your physical armor. This goes with the Void Dark Plate very well. Increase to reduction of all magic damage. Sword and Shield is just a great option for tanking. Another reason why Sword and Shield is not only do you get all the perks and benefits of your sword, but you also get 4 extra perks because of the shield. So like, for example, this shield's got Enchanted Ward, Shield Defense, Sturdy Energy, and Sturdy. So Enchanted Ward gives me a 4% reduction from light and heavy attacks. Shield Defense gives me 5% damage reduction. So really I'm getting 9% damage reduction from light and heavy attacks if you think about it, with just having the shield up by itself. Okay? So you get the 4 extra perks from your shield, and you get all that empowerment and good defenses from Sword and Shield. Okay. 2, blocking with your shield helps keep your stamina from getting exhausted because you can get like Sturdy Energy and you can get Sturdy and all these different perks. Okay. Now, why run Flail? Now, I don't just run any Flail. I specifically run Power Stone, and here's why. The main perk of Power Stone is called Heavy Burden. If my health is above 90%, any attacks I do cause a 20% weaken on my enemy, causing them to do 20% less damage. Okay? And that's for 5 seconds. Then there's a 5-second cooldown on each target. So if I initiate the fight by attacking, which you do, you're going to weaken the enemy by 20%. Okay? Now, look at what the perk says. This works on both weapons. So just having it in my offhand, if I attack with my sword and shield, I'm also applying that 20% weaken. Okay? So also a great thing. I think sounds like my washing machine is going to fall off the pedestal. It's like, anyways. So that's one reason I like using the Power Stone, is to weaken the enemy to do 20% less damage. It also has refreshing move, which is key to tanking. You want to have that cooldown reduction when you attack. But it also comes with Enchanted, which gives me an extra percentage of damage for light and heavy attacks. And then I put Sundering Stacks on mine. Some people will put Mending Vortex. Some people put, other different perks on there. I find Sundering Stacks is great because not only do my attacks weaken the target, but then every half a second, my attacks inflict a stack of 4% rend up to 5 times, meaning I can keep a 20% rend, so a 20% armor reduction up with my flail on, and a 20% weaken. So basically, my whole team is going to do 20% more damage to this boss, and my whole team is going to take 20% less damage. Right? Very, very overpowered right now. But here's the main reason why I use Flail combined with my sword and shield. So say, for example, let's just throw a spear on here real quick. So say I'm running sword and board or sword and shield and spear in the offhand, so I get the rend and perforate and all that fun stuff, right? When I swap to my spear to hit these attacks in this skill combo, my shield is not out, which means I am not getting the benefits of these 4 perks that my shield has. Okay? So I'm getting the benefit. I have my leadership up. I'm doing all this stuff. I'm fighting. And then I switched over to my spear. I just lost 4 perks that I was using on my sword and shield because I no longer get the benefits of the shield. But if I throw my Power Stone back on, all right, or my flail, when I'm attacking with my sword, I've used all my cooldowns. I'm here, whop. I smacked him, and then I switched to my flail to start using. Look at my shield's still up. So what do you think I still benefit from? The 4 perks of my shield, including a protection perk. So say I was running the nature protection, right? Strike protection, slash protection, void protection, whatever it is on my shield, I'm still getting that benefit when I swap to hit these attacks and do all this good stuff, right? I still get the benefits of my shield. I never lose the benefits of my shield no matter which weapon I'm in, right? Even if I run, say, a great axe or a great sword in my offhand, I still lose the benefit of the shield the moment I swap to that weapon. Okay? Even great sword. All right? I can only use the benefits of that shield when I have it equipped. So that would mean sword and shield and sword and flail both get the benefits of the shield. So that's another reason why I've been running flail. And I have found in this season, and like I said, patch notes can change things or different seasons can change things, but I have found in this season, flail and shield and sword and shield are phenomenal. There's some other benefits to the flail. Let me show you the skill tree I'm using right now. You can do impairment on your attacker, which is going to inflict weaken when they hit you or you block an attack. You gain crowd control reduction at the end hit of your vortex. You also, on this Better Together, you do like a self-ticking heal on yourself if you have 1 or more allies with you. Every 3 seconds is 16% weapon damage of a heal. And because you're in heavy load, any teammate that's within 3 meters of you, so let's go right here, 3 meters. So anywhere between there on either side, right? So anybody in this big circle around you is also getting that same self-heal. So if you and some other melees are sitting there attacking a boss, they're getting the benefits of that heal, right? And then there's also leader of the pack, which is your flail attacks deal more damage if you have no allies around you, but if you have allies with you, you increase their damage by 10%. You give them a 10% empower. So what was the whole point of using sword and shield? Empowerment, right? Right here, leadership. So if I'm using my sword and shield and I'm empowering my team, and then I swap to my spear or great axe or a hammer or something, right? They're going to lose that 10% in power. But if I instead switch to my flail and I'm attacking, anybody within that 3-meter radius of me not only is healing, but they're also gaining that 10% in power. So even when I swap to use these skills real quick and I swap back, the whole team did not lose, or majority of the team didn't lose their 10% in power. The only ones who would have lost that 10% in power during that time would have been anybody that was outside of that 3-meter range. Okay? So it's another way that you can keep that uptime of that empowerment up for your team, right? And the whole point of being a tank is, one, you're absorbing the damage, you're collecting the aggro, you're making sure you're keeping your team alive, but you're debuffing the boss, you're buffing up your team, you are a support. You're the tank, but you are a support, right? Like, you're supporting your team by taking all the damage. So I find that the sword and shield and flail gives you a really, really nice platform to be an amazing teammate, right? Now, that doesn't mean that you have to run sword and shield and sword and flail, right? There's some content where a hammer might be better, where CC in a big group of enemies might end up being a little bit better. Or maybe using a great axe so you can clump enemies together with like gravity well and reap and stuff like that, right? Or using your spear to massively trip and do like perforate or something like that, right? So there's benefits of each weapon, but this is what I will tell you. This is a video game, and video games are meant to be fun. So, for example, like me, I love greatswords. I just love that big bruiser greatsword in your face thing. So, although there's best in slot or best gear setups that people say, it's important that you're having fun playing the game that you want to play, right? If, for example, you're like, dude, I get how the flail can buff up my team and that's all amazing, but I don't like using the flail. Like, it's not fun to me. It's boring. It's this, it's that. Then don't use it. Make sure you're still doing something that you enjoy the combat or you enjoy that play style, right? Just keep in mind, when it comes to the in-game content, a lot of it is gate kept by the community because they want you to be running the best in slot gear or having the best weapon choice for it and yada, yada, yada. Like, if you're not an evade or bleed rapier, then you're probably not going to get in on a pickup group, or whatever. So keep in mind that there is that aspect of it. But when it comes just to tanking the content you want to tank and you're doing stuff in the open world, or you have a group of friends that, you're just the tank and you have a healer and you have some set DPS and you want to run greatsword, you want to run hammer, you want to run spear, you want to run, axe, whatever you want to run, the hatchet, do what you like to do with the content you like to do, because at the end of the game or end of the day, you're playing a video game and the video games are meant to be fun. All right. And tanking is fun. It is a lot of fun. It's obviously getting blamed for anything that goes wrong, even if it's not your fault. And then, if it's a big wipe where it was a DPS check, it's somehow still your fault, or maybe they pull aggro and, they run ahead of you and they grab all the mobs and they die and they're like, oh, tank. And you're like, well, what are you pointing at me? That's not so fun. But at the end of the day, you're supposed to be having fun playing this game. So make sure that you kind of have that as somewhat of a priority, that you're enjoying the combat, you're enjoying how you play the game. Because there's going to be a lot of people that'll even say, hey, you know what, why run upheaval instead of I run whirling blade? That's great. I like uppercutting. Like, I think this is fun. Whap, whap. Right? Like, it's just, it feels smooth to me, right? Some people prefer using whirling blade. I totally get it. But that's their preference. Some people like using leaping strike not so much in tanking, but like, for example, my PvP setup is I keep Shield Rush, I drop Defender's Resolve, and I run pretty much almost all this the same, except I grab Leaping Strike, right? So I'll grab Leaping Strike and I keep Upheaval. I still don't run Whirling Blade. It's just not the skill that I enjoy using. I don't really use Shield Bash. I like Shield Rush personally. That's just what I like to run, right? When it comes to the Flail, I like having this mobility with the taunt, this taunt, and then the Vortex. So this is the skill tree I like using for Flail. Does some people like using Smite? For PvP, I like using Trip. Some people, like for PvP, I use Vortex, Eruption, and Trip. I don't even use Bludgeon or Barrage. But for PvE tanking, I find I like having this extra taunt and mobility, this taunt, and then this for all that utility, right? You can heal, you can brute your enemies, all that with Mending Vortex or Arcane Vortex. I find it's a great skill tree option. Let me see if I have my Great Axe set for... Nope, that's set for PvP. I think my Spear... Okay, so my Spear is set up on how I use it for tanking. So I don't use Vault Kick for tanking, even though this is a taunt. I use Perforate, I use Skewer, and then I use Cyclone for the taunt. Okay, so this is what I run when I'm running PvE right here. Okay, PvP, I take off Perforate and I run Cyclone, I run Skewer, and I run Sweep. Right, I've just found that Sweep has a little bit more utility in PvP, but for PvE, this is what I'll run if I'm running Spear as my offhand. Right, okay, let's see, for Hammer, this is what I run on Hammer. This is my skill tree. I don't run Hammer that often, but when I do, I'm running Shockwave, I'm running Clear Out, and I'm running Armor Breaker. And then Aftershock. For Greatsword, I run this right here. I run Roaring Rupture for the taunt. I do not run Calamity Counter. Some people do. I don't. I instead use Steadfast Strike. Right? This still generates threat, but it is not a taunt. So there is a difference. So all this does generate threat. It is not a taunt. And then I always run Relentless Rush so I can kind of stay mobile and, get out the way. Let's see what else I can show you when it comes to the tank build. That's pretty much it. Like I run primarily right now, I'm running Sword and Shield and Sword and Flail. That's for most content. I'm running that, and I've been very successful. Very fast speed runs of M3, speed runs of Hive Gorgons, Worm. Obviously, if you're the range tank and you're up on the ledge, that's different. But for the most part, this is what I run. And all the videos that you've seen, this is the type of gear I'm running. Some of those videos I was doing in my Frigid Dawn gear. Some of them I was doing in my Hoplite gear. So you can run a lot of content from intermediate on up when it comes to gearing. So I hope that gave you some value and gave you some insight on how to start gearing yourself as a tank and kind of what I'm currently running and the reason why I'm running that. But like I said, when Season 10 hits, who knows if any of this stuff is going to be relevant. If it's not, I plan on doing an update video once that hits and we start getting a better idea on how gearing works. And, because, for example, this is 36 Magnify on the attributes, right? Well, in Season 10, gear is not going to provide any attributes. It's only going to be based on your character level. So the attributes part is going to be irrelevant. There you go. Real quick, I will touch on my attributes. So this is kind of like what I run. I run a 48 strength food, so that goes up to 250. So when I go into the dungeon, I'll pop a 48 strength food. That gives me 250 strength. So I hit this bubble, which is 33% stamina regen when I'm doing my basic melee attacks. I run, depends on the content, but for the most part, I'll run 50 focus. And this is why, because I am running Flail. My Flail does benefit from focus, but the healing the crowd control reduction and all those other aspects of the flail utility scale off of focus. Okay. But also these two bubbles. At 25, I get a 5% cooldown reduction. And then at 50, I get a 10% increase to incoming healing. So if a healer's putting a heal bubble on me, I'm getting 10% extra healing from it. My life steal from Blood Drinker, getting 10% extra heal from it, right? And then I will sometimes we'll go down to say 300 Constitution and run say 300 Strength, right? So I do that as well, depending on the content. But for the most part, a lot of times I'll just run 350 Constitution so that I'm getting the grit when I'm doing my melee heavy attacks, and then I'm getting a 7% base damage reduction during the time that I have grit. So if I want some extra damage reduction, I just start heavy attacking, so I'm getting my grit, and at the same time I'm getting a 7% damage reduction. Okay, so that's kind of how I do my attributes. Like I said, I take a 48 strength food, so this goes to 250, and then I keep these kind of like that. And that's been very, very successful for me when it comes to tanking all the endgame content that you guys see in the tank series video. So with that, I want to thank you guys for sticking with us this long. It's been a nice long video, longer than I was hoping, but it's a lot of information to cram into one video. So you can see probably why I hadn't posted one already. If you got any value out of this, just hit that like button, subscribe if you haven't. If you want to know specific ways to tank specific dungeons, check out the series New World Tank Mastery. I take you through all the different dungeons with pickup groups, random groups, live feed, unedited, uncut video of me tanking it and showing you step by step and talking you through how to do the pulls and all that good stuff. So thank you guys for watching. Thank you guys for keeping the New World community going. I know it had a rough start. The game gone through a lot, but I honestly feel the game's in a pretty good state, and a lot of people will actually have fun playing this game because there's not a whole lot out there for us MMO people. Let's be honest. And you know what? It is a fun game to play, and being a tank is awesome. And I will see you guys on the next video. Y'all have a good day, and don't forget, tell your mom I said hi. Later.